would probably be the best thing. This is cacao butter, so raw chocolate, but just the oil. This is what it looks like before it's melted. And it doesn't melt at room temperature. It has to be melted. I usually melt it in the dehydrator, because I also have a dehydrator going, so you can do that even there if you have one. If you don't, you can just put some boiling or hot water in a bowl, kind of do like a double boiler, and put your jar or other bowl or whatever of cacao butter in there and wait for it to melt. And it works better if your oils are warm when you're using them, because the chocolate can cool quite quickly and then it gets thicker and it's harder to pour and work with. And this is coconut oil. It also, we have some here? Yeah, there's some in the jar right here. It also is hard, but even in a warm room it melts. It melts faster, more easily at a lower temperature, I should say, than cacao butter. Which also means that by adding coconut oil, we're going to end up with a bit of a softer chocolate. The Bliss Kisses are, I call them a raw chocolate truffle, so they're pretty soft. Like they kind of, at room temperature, they get kind of soft and melt in your fingers, and I really like them like that. I like chocolate like that. So if you're experimenting with chocolate, it's just good to remember that if you were to use only cacao butter and no coconut oil, you would end up with harder chocolate that would stay harder at room temperature. The more coconut oil you add makes your chocolate softer, and you could make chocolate with just coconut oil. Kind of nice. It would be hard in the fridge, but yeah, kind of soft. Get out. This is coconut butter, or some people call it coconut cream. We have some here. The way that I like to describe this to people as being different from coconut oil, it's kind of like the difference between almond butter and almond oil. So this, they take the whole coconut, it includes the fiber and everything in the coconut. It would be more like almond butter but made with coconuts. And the oil is just the oil extracted from the coconut. And this also gives it more kind of like truffly texture. Kind of softer and just gives it more body. Yeah. Yeah, this can be formed in the dehydrator, or, I mean, it's a little bit different. It isn't necessarily hard. I actually used to make the Bliss Kisses with agave, but I like honey a lot better than agave personally. I think it's a much healthier sweetener. It contains a broader spectrum of fructose and glucose, which is easier for our bodies to process. Agave is really high in fructose. It has a fuller body flavor, and also, if you use raw honey, it also contains lots of different probiotics and different things that are really good for our bodies. The other thing that I love about honey is that we can get it locally. Honey, it's really easy to find. It's really amazing local honey. We use all local honey at Cafe Bliss that's produced here on the island, just off island. It's not vegan, which for some of our customers is an issue. But I feel okay about using honey that I know is taken from a source where the bees are treated well and they are their own honey to make because they produce more than they need. So if we just make what they don't need, then they can still have the same life potentially that they would have otherwise, whether or not we're interfering with them. So I feel good about using honey. This is another type of sweetener called lucuma. It's a powder which is made from a fruit from South America. And it has a really nice fruity flavor, and it's a very low glycemic sweetener. It goes really well with chocolate, adds a nice flavor. I'm gonna add 3 tablespoons. Notice, so I put the oils in and then the honey, because the honey is also liquid, and now I'm putting the powders in. Just a little pinch of salt. And a little pinch of, once again, the vanilla bean powder. And now we're going to add the cacao powder. It's kind of like cocoa, but it's processed at low temperatures, so it's raw. And I'm sure many of you know the principles behind raw food. Basic thing being that when food is heated to high temperatures, we lose a lot of the nutritional value of the food. And cacao is one of those things that when it's raw is incredibly, it's medicinal. It contains all kinds of trace minerals and it's really high in magnesium and all kinds of things that are really good for us. So raw chocolate, you don't have to feel guilty about eating it at all. You can actually feel good about eating it. That goes in. We also sell all of these ingredients at Cafe Bliss. Raw chocolate. You can see some of them on the table there. So I'm just going to stir this a little bit before I blend it to get it to start mixing. And chocolate is something you have to be fairly gentle with. I'm not going to blend it on a high setting at all. I'm only going to blend it enough to mix it and get it to all the lumps out. I'm not even turning the blender up at all. I just turned it on. It's going at its lowest setting. And I'm kind of crazy with the blender. I like do it with the lid open and
I was thinking this is dangerous.
I know, I'm like, we should catch it.
you might not want to do this at home. Me and the Vitamix are like this, so. So I'm just watching it to see that as it's blending, it looks like all the lumps are out. But it looks nice and smooth. So this is the mold that we use for the Bliss Kiss, little hearts. I think it's actually for ice cubes or something. I just got it at the kitchen store. If you don't have a mold of any kind, the first thing I started when I started experimenting with raw chocolate, I used to use ice cube trays and just make little square chocolates. You could also just pour it into like a baking dish and then cut it into pieces afterwards, or break it into pieces. That sometimes looks good too. So you don't need to use a blender to do this either. You can use a bowl and a whisk. That also works. But I just find that the blender is very effective. Just do this out here so you guys can see. The other nice thing about having made it in the blender is that it's really easy to pour it at this point out of the blender. There we go.